We're now joined by John Hoover, covers Oklahoma, SI.com on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. John, I know it's been probably just, I don't even know, the last, 15, 18 hours or so, but Brent Venables just released a statement to kind of just update and double down on exactly what happened. Has that calmed anything down in Norman?
No, there's a lot of unrest right now, Smokey. A lot of unrest. A lot of the fan base is saying, "What the actual hell is going on in Norman?" Because we all know the story by now. It happened about broke out last night around 10 o'clock. Cale Gundy was in a meeting. Was giving the guys some notes. He noticed one guy was distracted. He grabbed his iPad and said, "What are you working on?" And he read it to the rest of the class. This was just the wide receiver group. And what he was reading were some rap lyrics that had some objectionable language in it, some objectionable words, including some racially charged words. And Cale read them out loud. Cale last night characterized it in a statement, his resignation statement, saying that he read through it really fast and he wasn't sure he was even reading and he didn't mean to say what he said, and it shocked him. Well, Brent Venables came out today and said he read it multiple times, not once, but multiple times, a racially charged word that is objectionable to everyone. So Venables kind of standing up for one angle of this, and I think it sounds like, at least the way he's portraying it, Cale Gundy is taking a different perspective, that he read it and then stopped, versus what Venables is saying, he read it multiple times. Interesting.
So is this the players not being able to be comfortable with him going for, what he did was irresponsible and ridiculous, but was this maybe coming from the players of this got out of hand when he was doing it?
Yeah, okay, so I do a radio show in Tulsa, and right behind me, I go 9 to 11, and 11 to 2 is Pat Jones, former longtime Oklahoma State coach. Pat has some impeccable sources, especially as it relates to Cale Gundy and the Gundy family. You can probably guess, right? That's all I can do is guess. And it was not characterized that way to me. It was more of they were joking around. They were giving the player who got caught goofing off a hard time. Everybody was laughing about it. And then when the meeting was over, it was a few minutes before Brent Venables came to Cale Gundy and said, "Hey, you might have to resign. I can't believe you said this. I can't believe this happened. There may be a situation coming up where you have to resign." That's what Pat Jones, that's the way Pat characterized it using his sources.
So, John, can you begin to explain just how much of a massive piece Cale Gundy has been to the Oklahoma machine for going on, a couple of decades at this point?
Well, yeah, 30 years, going back to when he was a quarterback under Gary Gibbs. Let's just start there. They ran the split tee, and they ran the veer, and then they ran the wishbone for 2 generations. And, after 40, 50 years of doing that, Cale Gundy, whose big brother went to Oklahoma State and set all the Big 8 passing records, Cale Gundy thought about going to Oklahoma State, but once Gary Gibbs came along and offered him a scholarship, from Midwest City, north side of Oklahoma City, right? So you're real close.
Yeah.
Once he got that offer from OU, he said, "I'm going to OU. I'm not going to be a Cowboy. I'm going to be a Sooner." So he was the guy, y'all. He was the guy who came in at the end of the very end of the vestiges of the wishbone era. They were trying to move on. He was the quarterback that they signed. Blue chip, 4-star quarterback, number 1 player in Oklahoma, number 5 quarterback in the country. He was the guy who brought them out of the Stone Age, so to speak, out of the running quarterback wishbone, option offense that they loved so much for so many generations. He's the guy that threw the football. And so after 3.5 years as a starter, he owned every passing record at the University of Oklahoma, every record. And guys, he only had 6,100 career passing yards. So that's how little OU threw the football. They still ran a lot with Cale Gundy, but he was the guy who brought them into the future. Well, fast forward to 1999, past the John Blake and the Howard Schnellenberger eras. Cale Gundy comes back as an assistant coach, and there he is helping Josh Heupel on that first 1999 OU team under Bob Stoops, helping shatter all his passing records. So he has been a fixture on the OU coaching staff ever since. He's the only guy who coached under Bob Stoops, Lincoln Riley, and now Brent Venables, although he probably won't get credit for that because the season hasn't started yet, right? So he kind of bridged that long gap with 27 seasons or 23 seasons as an assistant coach at OU. And guys, he was the guy who recruited Adrian Peterson, beat Texas and Texas A&M for Adrian Peterson. He was the guy who went to federal prison and visited with Adrian's dad and told Adrian, you can either get on board or you can watch as the train goes by because we're winning with you or we're winning without you. And then he said, that's the end of my recruiting pitch. And Adrian said, I like that. I'm going to Oklahoma. So he's one of many guys that Cale Gundy has recruited through the years, but that's just the most high-profile story. He's kind of a legend around here, guys.
So how does that affect recruiting? Because they had a hell of a July. Anything that has been a backlash yet, or just still too soon to kind of know?
Last night, their 4-star receiver recruit, Jaquace Petaway, tweeted simply, bro, with a little emoji face. Like, what the hell? I mean, you could tell his message was, this is happening now? Mm-hmm. He's getting ready to sign in December. He's a very good receiver. I think he's the 24/7 has him as the number 3 player in Oklahoma's 2023 class. He's the number 3 ranked player. So he's a very, very big. And then they've got another receiver, 3-star receiver, Keon Brown. And these guys, these receivers, they love them some Cale Gundy. So, and if you go back and listen to the other players, there's guys who are freshmen on this team. There's guys who are commits right now who are saying, I stand with Coach Gundy. So it's interesting. It could have certainly a deleterious effect on Oklahoma's recruiting class.
So is there any way to put the genie back in the bottle here in Oklahoma to move forward without this affecting the team?
No, I don't think so. I think there's going to be there is a way. It can happen, but my suspicion is that this is going to leave a mark. This is going to divide the team. There's going to be people who Brent Venables is a great uniter of people. So he's got an opportunity to take this divide that's been created, whether it's between all the alumni, something like 220 alumni came to the spring game among the 75,000 people that were here. 220 of them were former players. A lot of those former players are really kicked off right now and really kind of raw. And I'll tell you this, there's Oklahoma just set a record, guys, over $109 million in just donations. The previous record for donations was $58 million. Okay, so $109 million this year. A lot of that is Brent Venables. Now there are a lot of those people who wrote those checks who are big Cale Gundy fans saying, wait a minute, Brent Venables, what are you doing? Why'd you dismiss him from the team? Why'd you make him resign? Why has he been removed? How bad do you want this check? There's people that are saying, if I don't get my Cale Gundy, you're not getting your check. You know what I mean? That actually played out when in the Mike Stoops situation, when Mike was fired at midseason by Lincoln Riley. It was some really deep-pocketed boosters who went to Lincoln Riley and went to the president of the university at the time. He's not there now, different Perez. But they went to him and said, this is embarrassing. Texas just hung 50 points on us. Texas isn't any good. We need to change the defensive coordinator. They got it done. Boosters got it done. I have that on good authority. So I just wonder if, somebody with deep pockets and a loud mouth can come up and make Venables really think about this. It doesn't sound like it now. It sounds like Venables, as we said at the top, has doubled down, and he's going down this path. So, but it's a bad look all the way around. And guys, gosh darn it, we made it to the start of two-a-days, start of training camp, the start of preseason, without anybody under Venables getting arrested, getting kicked off the team, We made it across the finish line, and then a coach gets forced to resign. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and the last one you probably would have guessed would have been Cale Gundy too, and
I know,
and much less.
Mr.
And I think
Mr.
the other thing, yeah, exactly. And the other thing too, John, is I'm already seeing Texas commits like, hey, my coach would never say, and that's the other thing you got to deal with. So it's a triple whammy. But I did want to ask you about LaDainian Washington, who will now step in as the new wide receivers coach for Brent Venables here all of a sudden. I mean, how much do you know about him? How much confidence is there in him? I know he's no Cale Gundy, but he's going to have to be the guy now.
Yeah, that's the thing. First, I'll address what you said about Texas. We've been talking about this on my show today about Gary Patterson saying some stuff to players that he had to apologize for.
Yeah.
And Texas hired him. So I know you got a lot of Texas fans listening. If you're a Texas fan, I wouldn't brag too loud that the OU coaches are using that word because there's some Texas coaches. Anyway, LaDainian Tomlinson, Washington, LaDainian Thompson as a running back, who probably could coach any position he wanted. No, LaDainian Washington, Missouri wide receiver. He kicked around in the NFL. He's with the Cowboys for a little while. He's 31 years old. He was with the St. Louis Battlehawks last in the XFL or the AAF. I think it was the XFL. Anyway, no, it was the AAF, the Alliance of American Football. He's a young guy that really seems to, 31 years old, seems to really relate to the players quickly, has already formed a lot of relationships, and he was brought on as an offensive analyst, but basically he was the assistant wide receivers coach. He was assisting Cale Gundy. So on an interim basis, unless something changes, Venables said yesterday, on an interim basis, he'll be the wide receivers coach. I don't think they're going to turn any big recruiting. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't think they're going to turn recruiting over to him unless they decide to make him full-time and remove the interim tag. But, we'll have to wait and see what kind of personality he's got. We haven't met him yet, haven't talked to him, haven't interviewed him. Find out what kind of recruiter he is. And if he can do the job, then I'm sure they'll try to retain him.
John, there has been, I've seen this with some reaction, even those who are members of the media or in our chat room. You've mentioned how powerful or how important the role was of Cale Gundy in the Oklahoma program, and he's a legend, and not just with recruiting, but just the fact he's been around. Was there anything at all between Gundy and Venables that Venables has to make the decision? Was there have you seen any of that smoke that this was just something that Venables was looking for something? There's no way that's true, is there?
No. They spent time on the road when Venables first got here. We went to Cale and said, "Do you want to stay?" And Cale said, "Of course I want to stay. I don't want to go anywhere." He goes, "Good, you're my guy. You're the one I want." To borrow from the late, great Olivia Newton-John, right? He told him, "You're the one that I want. I want you here. I want you recruiting. You did a great job before. You're going to continue to do a great job. We're going to be best friends. You're going to work for me, and it's going to be fabulous." And then all of a sudden, this comes out of nowhere. So it was a shocker. There's no bad blood between them. There's no friction between them. These guys like each other. There's no jealousy. There's no hatred or anything like that. They have been fast friends since 1999 when Cale was the third guy Bob Stoops hired, and later on Venables arrived from the K-State bowl game. So it's been a long, fruitful relationship between them, and that's what else makes this so shocking. The first thing everybody around here thought, well, the administration took this away from Venables and just cut his knees out from under him, right, and neutered him and made him fire one of his guys. And it's coming out now that may not be the case, that it might be Venables who actually made the call, which is, again, that's the most shocking part of this whole thing.
Yeah, well, John, your first reaction when I asked you about the smoke, the dust to settle, whatever, was that now there's a lot of unrest right now in Norman, Oklahoma, and I can understand why. We appreciate it. Thanks for your time. Good luck handling that the next day 2 or 5 or whatever it needs to, because it's going to have it'll have a lasting effect on recruiting, you would think, or it could, and you hope if Oklahoma can settle that down as well with the right way to handle the prospects and commits. Thanks for your time, John.
You bet. It's a preseason story we did not want to cover, but yet here we are.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, guys.
Great stuff from John Hoover, SISooners.com. And, we've had so